I have the most nightmarish in-laws that you have ever heard about. Guys, I'm the breadwinner in my household. I pay the bills, I pay for the house. Yeah, my husband makes some money, but nowhere close to what I make. I'm not bragging. Trust me. Reason I'm telling you this is because my in-laws, they have this weird thought that it's their son who's making all the money and paying the bills, so they think they can talk to me any way they want. But I have a little trick up my sleeve that's going to get them to realize who's the boss in town now. I've been unfortunate in my relationship with men. It's either some are good and their siblings are bad and vice versa. I'm a data analyst and I'm doing very well in my field. I almost missed out on becoming useful in life when a result of the decisions I've taken while I was young. I got pregnant by a guy in college against sound judgment, and I had 2 twin boys. I discovered after the pregnancy that the promises which my lover at the time had made to me were empty. He jilted me for another lady who he claimed had been by his side all along. He did not lay claim to his children, and though I would have compelled him by taking him to court, I did not want him to present in their lives either. I focused on my career and simply determined that I was not going to get married. My goal was to train my kids, but fate had other plans for me. I met Dylan. When my boys were around 5 years of age, he had never been married before and had no children, and I was way better than him financially as he was a security guard. But he somehow got me to recant my decision about not having anything to do with a man. I mean, he was the first man who had taken an interest in a single mother of 2 boys. And even though I initially tried pushing him off, he was very persistent. I enjoyed the fact that he was not threatened by my success as a data analyst, and I found his confidence very attractive. Dylan and I began to hang out, and he was great with my boys. It was when he started coming to my house and spending time with my boys that I knew for a fact that no amount of mother's love can ever replace a father's role in their lives of the kids. We began dating, and I asked him to move in with me and the children. It did not take long for him to ask me to marry him. I did not hesitate in saying yes because there was no reason on this green earth to refuse. We were compatible and had a comfortable place, and the only problem which I would later discover were his family. Dylan's parents lived in another state different from where we were, so he told them about his engagement and our soon-to-be marriage. We video chatted over the phone, and they seemed receptive and eager to meet me and the kids. I never knew the warmness which they displayed was just the means to hide what was really going on behind the scenes. I came across Dylan's phone one day when he had left for work. I returned from the office, and he had a night shift which he was rushing to meet up with. I took his phone from my kids as they had found it lying on the couch, and we were playing with it, and I was tempted to scroll a bit through his device that day, and this was something I've never had the urge to do before. I discovered, to my amazement, that his parents had been bombarding him with messages and advice to not follow through with the marriage, and their reason was that I was a single mother. They told him that getting married to me simply meant that he was going to take care of my 2 boys, who were another man's child. Dylan and all of his responses made it clear to them that he loved me and the boys, and would get married to me no matter what. He kept their discussions from me as he knew it would get me upset, and he was right. I mean, anybody would be upset from that. I spent the whole night thinking about what Dylan's parents had said to him. Though I was happy he genuinely loved me, I could not shake off the feeling that his parents' disapproval of our union was going to be a serious problem in the future, and I have had enough problems to desire more. I informed Dylan when he came back home the next day that I wanted to call off the wedding. He was shocked and could not tell why the lady who he was so sure loved him wanted to call off her forthcoming wedding with him. He began reassuring me of his sincerity and his desire to commit himself to me all the days of his life, and that's when I told him his parents might succeed in changing his mind. Dylan knew from my statement I was aware of what his parents had been saying to him behind my back. He told me, pay no attention to them, as he was not going to do anything that they were saying. But I was not satisfied. If we were going to get married, I wanted to live in peace with my in-laws. I told him I was going to change the surname of my sons to his. Well, I wanted to do so, and I don't know, perhaps his parents might see them as his kids and sincerely accept us. Dylan did not see the point in me wanting to change the names of my kids, but I insisted, and he let me have my way. We agreed I would not let his parents know I had learned of their attempt to not let him marry me. Dylan and I got married, and we informed his parents about it. They then informed us that they would be coming over to visit us soon. We prepared for their coming, and I was the one bringing a lot of things to the table, and that does not mean Dylan did not play his role. I never reminded him that I earned higher or put unnecessary pressure on him to do more. I even covered him by making people include his parents' belief. He was the one providing. I guess that's why his parents felt I was going to use him to train my children. My in-laws traveled down to visit us, and for people who came to just spend a few days, oh boy, they carried a ton of luggage with them. I acted as though there was no hurt in my heart towards them, but I planned on confronting them if they ever acted hostile towards me or my kids. They did not, though, luckily, and they seemed to like my kids, and I felt the changing of names had worked. Time went by, and my in-laws, who were supposed to be visitors, were now permanent residents. They just refused to go back to where they came from. Let me be a little clear so it doesn't seem like an exaggeration here. They had spent about 2 months in the house with no talk of going back. I was footing the bills, though, and they felt it was their son. I had to discuss with Dylan about it, and we were left with no other option than to talk to his parents. Well, he did the confronting, and I did not want them to think that I was simply trying to eject them out of their son's house, and I was right. They asked him if I had put him up to it, but Dylan was smart enough to avoid creating more tension between his parents and me. He lied to them. I was not even aware he was asking about their departure. My in-laws opened up to Dylan that the reason they had delayed their going back home was because they had nothing to go back to. They were broke, and their rent was due. They had to come visit us with the last cash that they had on themselves, and I was touched when Dylan told me about their plight, but I needed my peace and space, so I suggested to Dylan that we give them a substantial amount of money, which could help keep them afloat when they went back. And I further suggested that we place them on a monthly allowance. I knew that the bulk of the money would be coming from me, but I had Dylan make it look like he was covering the entire cost. His parents were happy when he told them the plan. They fixed a date when they would be traveling back while Dylan and I worked to raise the money. I think it was a few days before their departure when the most unfortunate thing occurred. Dylan and I were on our way back coming home from the grocery store when we both got involved in a car accident. Our SUV van had a head-on collision with a delivery truck, and Dylan, he passed away on the spot, while I was rushed to the hospital where I spent 6 days in a coma. I came out of the coma to get the news of my husband's death, and it was a heartache from there on. My in-laws, well, they had to stay back after the passing of their son. They needed to make the arrangements of his burial. I was discharged from the hospital eventually, but I still had the doctor attend to me at home. I could no longer do certain things for myself, and especially my kids, so I had to hire a bit of a helping hand where necessary. The hiring of people was really expensive, but I had no other choice. I could not ask my in-laws to do the laundry for my kids, take my kids to school, prepare dishes, and take care of the house. I felt it was disrespectful to ask that of them. And besides, they did not volunteer to do so. What I never knew was that they are angry at the way I was spending my own money. I started noticing certain discomforts in my body, and I informed the doctor who came to the house to check on me. He made some checks and noted that there might be a need for me to undergo yet another surgery. His statements were not certain, as he said he needed some testing done and would still need to be carried out to be sure. All the same, he informed me that if there was a need for the surgery, then I was to be preparing myself financially, as the surgery would be quite expensive. My in-laws were present when the doctor and I were discussing, and I could see the looks on their faces. After the doctor had left that evening, they met with me, and their reason was to discuss the will of their son. They wanted to know how he had shared his properties. Well, I was taken aback by their demands, and I had just lost my husband and was yet to recover from the accident myself, but all they could think about was which property their son had allocated to everyone. I did not tell them that their son had not left any property behind, as everything they saw in the house, including the home itself, was mine. I politely told them that I could not have their discussion then. My in-laws flared up at my reluctance to discuss the sharing of my property, and they screamed at me and called me a leech who wanted to suck the property of their son after sucking his life. Their words cut me deep, and they did not consider the fact that I laid stretched out on the bed and was carried out about when there was a need. Their concern was for money. Money they thought he left behind. If I could get on my feet, I would have physically attacked them. Yes, I was bedridden, but I still had my mouth. I called out their wickedness and told them off. I asked my in-laws to leave my room, but before leaving, they told me no surgery would occur until the will of their son had been read and the property shared. You can imagine how I felt seeing the people whom I've kept and fed in my house for months now giving me conditions on how to spend my own money. I was offended, but my husband was their son, and, their son just died, and I did not want to disrespect his memory by throwing out his parents on the street, so I ignored them for the time being. I knew they could not stop me from undergoing the surgery if there was one that was needed. I was taken to the hospital, and tests which were conducted on me confirmed what the doctor had said. You see, I needed corrective surgery to avoid being paralyzed for life. I had the surgery and spent a few more weeks at the hospital, and I came back home in a wheelchair. Not that I was paralyzed, no. I was not just strong enough to start walking on my own. I got home to find that though the help I had employed to take care of my kids had been doing so, my in-laws had created a kind of atmosphere that was very uncomfortable for them. No mother would be pleased to see their own children in the frame of mind which I saw mine in, and it was because of my in-laws. I decided, for the sake of my late husband Dylan, just to peacefully deal with the situation, so I called my in-laws together and gave them the money which my husband had wanted to give them when he was alive to go back to the state where they had come from. I, however, told them that I would not be fulfilling the other promise which he made them, and that was sending money to them for their upkeep every month. The reason I gave them was that there was lots of financial commitment, and I could not meet them with sending them monthly allowances, even if I wanted to. My in-laws took the money I was offering them and flung it right back in my face. They said I thought them to be stupid enough to accept crumbs in exchange for the plenty which their son had left behind. They reaffirmed their stance about going nowhere till the will was read. The funny part of it was that they said I could be the one living in the house at the end of the day if it turned out their son had not left the house to me. They're indeed stupid, and they didn't even need to know it. I did not react, I just watched on in silence as they worked out. I decided that I was going to treat them like the opportunists that they were, but I waited till I had recovered and gotten enough strength. I made up my mind to sell the house and get a new place, and my decision was based on two reasons. I wanted to heal from the wound of losing my husband, and I wanted to enact a bit of revenge on my in-laws while doing so. I contacted a house agent who helped me seek a buyer. I kept my in-laws in the dark about who the real owner of the house was and what my plans were. The house agent contacted me with feedback on his search. Some people had indicated interest in moving in, but they had to take a tour and round about the building to see what they were buying. There was no way I would take them around the house without my in-laws getting a hint of what I wanted to do, but hey, it was necessary. The buyers and the agent showed up at the house on the agreed day, and my in-laws were seated at the sitting room when I ushered them in. They were a young couple who wanted to relocate into the area and needed a house. I began taking them around the house while my in-laws looked on in confusion. They began suspecting at some point that I wanted to sell the house when the couple told the agent and me that they would get back to us in a few days. They had barely left the house when my in-laws began asking me about what I wanted to do. I snubbed their questions and name-calling, and they began threatening to bring the full wrath of the law on me when I proceeded to sell the house which their son had left behind. I just laughed heartedly and continued ignoring them, and it only fueled their anger. On second thought, I reasoned that if they involved the police, then they would discover the truth earlier than I wanted them to, so I had to go back to them and act like I was scared of the threats. I approached my in-laws and told them that I did not want any fallout with the law. I told them that I made up my mind to let them have the house, and I only asked for some time to rent a new apartment. My in-laws reacted as though they had triumphed over a foe. They said it was good I was putting myself in check, and not wanting for them to do so. That was not even the painful part. They went ahead to say that moving out of the house did not mean that they were going to let me leech on the money their son had left behind, and my two boys had no right in his inheritance, even though I had changed their name to theirs. According to my mother-in-law, they could bear the name, but their blood would never be the same. I did not react or even say anything. I was only hurt and that they were just treating their daughter-in-law and grandkids unfairly. It meant that if the house and all the owners belonged to their son, then they would have ensured my kids and I left empty-handed. The realization only strengthened my resolve to deal with them, and I guess if Dylan were here right now, he would support my move. I'm currently looking for a 2-bedroom apartment to buy, and once I'm done, I would move out. Update number 1. Yeah, you see, so I've seen an apartment that is ideal and absolutely located in a serene area. I bought the house, had it fixed, and got some new furniture put in. The plan was to leave the old furniture for the couple who had bought the house for me. I located a school for my kids within the area, and after getting them enrolled, I had to move out of the house which I had sold. I informed my in-laws the day I was moving out. They just acted a bit entitled about it, to be honest. They did not bother to ask where I was and the kids were going. I had gotten my stuff ready, and I was about to leave the house when I was stopped by my in-laws. My in-laws temporarily halted my movement to ask me when we were going to have the will of their son read. I laughed on the inside. I did not want to tell them that there was no will anywhere, but that would bring my revenge plot just a bit too close soon. Then, I didn't want it to end, so I told them that I was going to get in touch with our lawyer once I got settled into my new home. My in-laws were not taking any chances, however. It was then they decided to ask where I live so they could get in touch with me just in case, I was dragging my feet about the whole thing. I wanted to give them a fake address, however. I did not, as I knew my in-laws could decide to follow me down just to be sure. Immediately after I moved out, I got in touch with the couple who had bought the house and gave them the keys. Well, it was the spare keys, but, I told them they could move in whether they wanted to, as I was no longer there. They thanked me, but noted that they planned on carrying out some renovation there. 2 days after I had moved out of the house, my in-laws showed up expectedly and asked what was holding me during the process of weeding the will. They did not ask how the kids and I were faring or anything like that. I told them I was still trying to get settled, and they resumed their shouting and calling me names. I did not like the drama which my in-laws were displaying in front of my kids. So, I just promised to get the lawyer by the weekend, and my words did not pacify my in-laws. They said that I was purposely delaying the process so I could spend their late son's money however I pleased. I ignored the anger which was boiling on my inside and just pleaded that they gave me till the weekend. They left my house that day and promised to contact the cops if the will was not read by the weekend. I know it would not take till the weekend for certain things which I had put in motion would start manifesting. I can't wait to give my in-laws a piece of my mind. Update number 2. I'm currently feeling great as I make this update this afternoon, and that's because revenge feels so sweet. I was taking a shower when my phone began ringing, and I hurried out of the shower and got it turned out, and I had missed the calls from the couple who bought my home and my in-laws too. I knew at once that my plan was unfolding. I was still with my phone when the couple began calling again. I picked up the phone call and they asked that I came to the house immediately, as there was an ongoing problem that involved the police. I knew what it was, so I immediately got dressed, took the documents which showed the house I was sold had previously owned by me, and headed to the place. I got to the house and saw my in-laws explaining to the police that they were peacefully seated at their home, when the carpenter who was standing by the side suddenly opened the door to the parlor and claimed he came around to do some work in the kitchen. They immediately confronted and called him a thief who had been stalking them for a while, as there was no other reason he would have had the key to their apartment. The carpenter claimed that the owner of the house had given him the key and asked him to come by and do some work. My in-laws were shocked and angry that the carpenter was insinuating that the house which they lived in was not theirs, and that's when they decided to involve the police. My in-laws were finding it difficult to prove to the cops that the house belonged to them, and so the moment they saw me arrive at the scene, they beckoned to me with the expectation that I would give a story and provide my proof of the corroborated claim. I was no time in disappointing them, however. I told the cops that the genesis of how my in-laws came to live in the house. I provided documents that showed that the house belonged to me and not my late husband Dylan, as my in-laws were claiming. I carried on in the scheme of embarrassment by telling the cops in the presence of the buyers and my in-laws that I was financially the backbone of my husband, and every bill which he had paid for his parents all came from my earnings. My in-laws were shocked at my revelation, and it felt good seeing it on their face, and the reason why they had been fighting to have my property, which for some reason they just felt like they were entitled to their late son's share, was because they were going broke on the little money that they saved ever since the first day that they came to visit. After I cleared up with the police about the ownership of the house, I turned to take my leave, while my in-laws rained down abuse on me. I didn't care. They were at the mercy of the new owners of the home, and I hope that they are treated just as they deserve. Update number 3. You can never tell how humble people can get when they are at your mercy. So, my in-laws came to my house, and though I wanted to kick them out on the spot, I decided to hold off. So, I could see the drama that they had up their sleeves. My mother-in-law rushed to my son and began trying to play loving grandmother. She talked about how much they reminded her of her son whom she just lost, and to my amazement, my father-in-law said that if his son were alive, he would be proud of the way I had managed the affairs of me and my children. All of this was hypocrisy, and I knew they were only doing so because they were stranded. I replied to my granddad's statement by saying
that his son, while living, was disappointed at the fact that they tried to stop him from getting married to me simply because I had 2 boys already, and if he were to be alive, he would be disappointed at the way that they had behaved after his demise. My in-laws wanted to deny their actions, but I told them that I was very well aware of their calls and messages that they sent to Dylan telling him that he was going to be training another man's kid if he got married to me. They could not lie about it anymore, so they followed the routine of an apology. They claimed that the past should be left where it belonged, in the past. I knew they were only talking about burying the hatchet because they needed something from me. I guessed that they were homeless, and I asked their reason for coming to my home, and they said that the couple who had bought my house had dealt mercifully by giving them a few days to move out or forcefully get thrown out, their choice. They said that they were going to need a place to stay and wanted me to accommodate them. That's right. I told them my house has a 2-bedroom apartment and there's no place to keep them as my kid was staying in a separate room. Well, my in-laws went ahead to plead with me to give them money which Dylan had wanted to give them back in the States that they came from. This was the same money that they had thrown in my face after I gave it to them a few months back. They wanted to go back to a place where they had friends and acquaintances they could run to for help. I told them that I would need a few days to raise the money, but the time I gave to them, it coincided with the very day the couple had given them to move out. My in-laws left my place with a glimmer of hope that would soon be shattered. Update number 4. Guys, my quest for revenge, it's been achieved. I can't tell the current location of my in-laws, but I believe that they're not doing great. After my last update, I went straight to the police station and informed the police that I felt my life was in danger. So I obtained a restraining order against my in-laws. My in-laws showed up at my house on the last day which they had been given. They had their luggage in hand and were expecting the money which I had promised them. They had the intention of using the money to lodge in a hotel for the night, while they would catch the train the next morning to be back to their state. My kids were still in school, and I had about 3 hours before I would need to go pick them up. I asked my in-laws to be seated patiently while I got the money from the bedroom. My in-laws, they went about thanking me, and I laughed on the inside. What they did not know was that they were thanking me for setting them up. I got to my bedroom and called the police. I told them my in-laws were harassing me at my place, and sirens began blaring in front of my compound, and my in-laws were oh so confused. I ran out of the house immediately, and I actually heard the police. My in-laws were scared and ran after me. I pointed at my in-laws and informed the police that they were the ones who have endangered my life, and my in-laws were immediately arrested and put in handcuffs. They protested while they were being carried off, and there was no feud between us, but I told the officers to pay no heed to them as they were lying. My in-laws were taken to the police station where they were detained. I presented a false account of what happened at the police station, and I told the cops that my in-laws had come to attack me for selling my own house, and I ordered them to leave my apartment, but they refused, even though they were aware of the restraining order. My in-laws were dumbfounded at my account of what happened, but there was evidence against them, and I had several alibis to support my claim. My in-laws were going back to be detained further, but I told the police I did not want to press charges for the sake of my late husband. They were released, but even though their anger towards me could not be quantified, they could do nothing as a violation of a restraining order could keep them behind bars for a very, very long time. I don't regret my actions, as I'm positive my husband would have supported me to the fullest. If he were alive.
Alright guys, let's discuss this story, because the comment section was a little all over the place. There were people arguing in it left and right. I mean, it's pretty common that in the Am I the A-hole area, you see people arguing in the comment section. But this one was like next level arguing. A lot of people were saying OP went too far with this bit of revenge because the people were elderly, they just lost their son. But there were also so many people that were like, are you guys out of your mind? Did you not listen to the story the way that they were treating OP? So there was people arguing all over the place. So I just come here to ask you guys, which side of the story are you on? So here's the question. Do you think OP deserved to get this bit of revenge? Or did OP go too far? Please let me know in the comment section down below. I do want to hear from you guys. I love responding to the comments, reading everything that you guys have to say. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day. And besides today's story, I do want to tell you guys something pretty special. We have our third channel, Mr. Reddito's Revenge, where you can find daily revenge stories, and there's already over 100 videos you can go and watch right now. The link will be down below in the description, but if you can't find it, you can also just go to the YouTube search bar and type in Mr. Reddito's Revenge. Now, if you're like me and you've read some of the stories or heard some of the stories I narrate, and you're just thinking in your head, I wish there was a way some of these story characters would have got a bit of karma or revenge. So that's why I made Mr. Reddito's Revenge and handpicked some of the wildest revenge stories I could find on the internet. So just so you know, you're going to get your favorite little dish of revenge. I hope to see you guys on that channel. Once again, the name is Mr. Reddito's Revenge. If you guys do want to subscribe to it, you're not going to be disappointed. Have a fantastic day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. But do remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!